I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ms. Alves? Here. Mr. Corvo?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara? Here. Mr. Vadenais?
Here,
Mr. Biragad.
Here. Open forum pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246-6. Madam Clerk, is there anybody wishing to be heard this evening during open forum?
Let's see.
You see one person raising their hand, Jeff Porter, if you see him.
Okay, yes, we have one.
Mr. Porter?
Thank you. I just want to, Jeff Porter, 6 Country Way. I just wanted to make a brief statement on your new business, item J for appointments, particularly on Mr. Kravitz, the town planner. On behalf of myself and Gary Pilardi, the chairman of the planning board, we would just like to say that Tom is exceptional in his role. He is intellectually curious, hardworking, understands how to get things done, makes excellent use of resources, and is great to work with. North Smithfield is lucky to have him. And I would just continually support Tom in what he does. He's done a lot of great things over the, at least my tenure with the planning board and prior to. So he's brought us up to par with our town's comprehensive plan. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes to get a lot of things done. So I would just ask that you continue to support Mr. Kravitz in his role as a town planner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. I tend to agree with you on that one. Is there anybody else that would like to be heard in open forum right now? Is there anybody else out there, Madam Clerk?
No.
Nobody?
Mm-mm.
Okay, let's move on. Old business, discussion by council, vote or other action on update on municipal building review task force. Mr. Vadenais.
Mr. President, I believe that Mr. Nordstrom is in the audience. He may want to address this. It's come to my attention, and then I'm sure your attention as well, that this invoice is not included in the packet for you folks to look at. Am I correct?
You're correct, sir. That was not included in the packet this week. It did come in a separate email, but I'm not sure. Because it wasn't, I don't think everybody received. So, Mr. Nordstrom, did you want to discuss this?
I asked him to unmute. He's not
Okay.
unmute.
Good.
There he goes.
Yeah, it's an invoice from Saccoccio Associates, a monthly bill. The recommendation from the task force is that it be approved. It's in the amount of $1,920, and it's for services rendered through December 31st, 2020. And it's invoice number 18017-32, dated January 8th, 2021.
Mr. Nordstrom, unfortunately, because it's not in the packet and the other councils didn't have an opportunity to review it, I hope there won't be an issue if we delay that until the next council meeting for approval.
It's at your pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on. Mr. Vadenais, actually, do you have anything else on this that you'd like to add on to this?
No, there'll be some other stuff in the next meeting. There's another issue that didn't make it to the packet either. Construction change directive we're looking for signature of the administrator, but we will get that out to the council for the next council meeting.
Okay. Moving on. Discussion by council, vote or other action on agreement for engineering services between the town of North Smithfield and Weston and Sampson engineers. Do we have a motion for discussion?
So
Do we have a second on that? Second. Okay, I was thinking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks. And what I would like to recommend to the council is that we hold off on this for the time being. We formed the Hallowell Committee. That's a lot of money, $84,000 is a lot of money. Let the Hallowell Committee do their diligence. Let them look over, what their job is. Let them look over the RFQ or RFP. They can look over the contract. They can discuss different avenues which we might be able to go. They might even be able to limit the scope of the contract. But either way, this was done at a previous council, and I didn't have a chance to really get involved in it, the whole concept too much. So what I would recommend to the council is that we form the Hallowell Committee, let the Hallowell Committee do their diligence. I'm not saying I'm against this by any stretch of the imagination. What I am saying though, is if the Hallowell Committee goes over this, if they come back to us after they do their diligence and say that this is something that we should do, then I'll support it. But I'm going to make a motion to table until such time that the committee can review. Is there any discussion? No discussion? No, I'm just right. I'm just having a discussion right now. If anybody would like to add to that, but have anything to say on that issue?
I agree with you, Matt. I was gonna make the same motion, just to wait until we get the committee going and see what kind of qualifications we have with the people on the committee and see what they can do prior to spending this money.
Yeah, I also agree with that. I think that after reviewing the agreement, as what, I'll echo what was said, is that, we can be in a position with the committee members to see what we can get done internally with the committee. And then from there, we can look and see maybe what we can add as an a la carte service. And I am led to believe that if we do it that way, that will be significantly less than what we've been quoted at for around 83,000.
Thank you. And again, if the committee comes back to the council and says that we should support this as it is, then I'll have my full support. But I just feel better if we get 9 new sets of eyes on it before we spend $84,000. Mr. Zelinski, do you want to add to this?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was on that council that took a look at this, and I was a firm advocate. There were 9 people that I had listed that wanted to stop the committee. It was in fair weather, taking COVID into consideration. We could have met in the parking lot in lounge chairs. And my thought process then was to get the committee going, get some ideas, and then go out for. I did not know that we were going to go out for an RFP. So, till one council night when I was going to address this and say who the people were that had contacted, and I was going to put their names up for people to consider. So I applaud the council members now that just want to see how this committee turns out. I think it's a great idea, so thank you.
I know we got some great people that put into this committee, and I'm positive that we'll have very qualified people to go over this.
Mr. President. Mr. President,
Go ahead, Ms. Vadenais.
I cannot hear the comments that are being made at all. Not even remotely. I cannot hear anything that, other than you making a motion to table this. I have not heard any of the comments that people are making. I cannot hear at all. I don't know if there was even a second for your motion to table, but I cannot hear any of the comments that are being made.
Okay, Bob, thank you for that. We didn't make a motion yet. We just had discussion. And does anybody want to just quickly go over real quick? Mr. Colorado, would you just quickly reiterate?
Mr. President, may I suggest that you ask somebody else in the audience if their audio is okay? Whomever, just pick it on the track. I see the finance director is there. See if she could hear it.
Mr. Jesus, can you hear me? Can you hear the other council members other than me?
I did. I'm sorry. I did. Far away, but I can hear it.
Okay.
I heard Stephen. It came in and out a little bit, but I heard most of what he said, and I definitely heard Kim.
Okay, well, Mr. Vadenais should be in on the conversation, obviously, so if we could just, Mr. Bogo, if we could just reiterate what you said earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, you know, I think with the talent that we're gonna have with the 9 individuals on the committee, not only, are they gonna bring, you know, I believe incredible talent to the committee, but they also have, what I believe are more of a vested interest in the town's direction, particularly Hallowell, than an outside engineering firm. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need an outside engineering firm, but I think that, we should really, I feel like we'd be putting the cart before the horse, without at least involving the committee first, seeing what we can get done internally within the committee. And then from there, possibly utilizing some of these types of services, not necessarily with Weston and Sampson, although that could be a possibility, but looking at it more as an à la carte type service.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir. Ms. Vadenais.
I believe that Mr. Kravitz was the one that issued this RFP. I may be mistaken, but I believe it was done through him. I'm just curious that if we walk away from this now, do we have to go back out and do another RFP or RFQ? Or more likely an RFQ, since it's engineering and architectural work.
Paul, I was thinking the exact same thing. I think this is a good idea, by the way. I think John is being very, gracious by sharing this process. I think it's good to get more eyes on it. And I think how we go forward with it is critical to just that. We can't really change the scope, right? Because that would be, you'd want to go out and bid something to be fair to everybody else. But if the committee gets together and then they become more laser focused on certain things they want to do, perhaps they could sit down with the bidder, Weston Sampson, and say, hey, can we do these? Can you do these 3 things for us that are in the contract now, and then do these several things later? I think if they stick to the exact scope of work and simply tackle it in certain pieces and certain times, I don't believe they would have to go out and rebid. I mean, I would let David, I would stay close to David through the process, but I mean, I think you could do it that way.
Will this contract still be good? Will it still be valid? Or is there a sunset clause in this when we have to act on it?
Mr. Iglesias, can you speak on that? Will this contract be good if we give the
Yeah,
committee?
I would just, what I suggest is that you don't table it to, you table it either to a date certain, or you table it to a date to be determined, within a reasonable period of time. I think as long as you don't vote to deny the contract, the contract would still be able to be awarded. As long as you don't vote to not. Now, what if the committee meets and they start wanting to rework the contract, then Councilman Vadenais would be right. You can't reword the contract and start all over. The real question is right now it's just about postponing the vote on the contract. That would be my advice. Just postpone the vote on the contract. If you have uncertainty as to your vote, that leaves all options on the table. Do not act on the contract one way or the other. Just postpone it to if you want to be careful, postpone it for 60 days or some period of time for consideration. And that gives you all the options to vote on it and approve it, or go back out to bid with a new scope, or try to negotiate something in between.
No, it is probable that the committee will change the scope of the contract, in which case we'd have to go out for a new bid. So
I get, Mr. President, you're right, but we're making a lot of assumptions. The question that was posed was, is how do we keep this contract award alive until we know whether we want it to approve it or not? And the answer is just postpone it to a date 60 days, 45 days, 30 days from now. And you'll start getting a feel for whether or not the contract as is going to be approved. There's no way for me to know what 9 other people are going to say about the contract.
Correct.
So speculating about it isn't, it's about just postponing the action to a date so that you still have the option to execute that action. That's my advice. If that's what the council desires to do.
Thank you. Did anybody else have anything they want to add to this?
What if Weston and Sampson says, we're not gonna honor it? You need, we've already engaged them and asked them to issue us a contract 3 months ago, 4 months ago now. And so we've been working through to get a contract. How long are they gonna hold, how long are they gonna sit there waiting for us to decide? In essence, we've already committed to them previously. And what my concern is that, and if you want to table it or you want to just go in a different direction, that's okay. All I'm saying is we have a contract right now. And my concern is that if we sit there and push it off for 60 days, is Weston and Sampson still going to want to come to the table, or then we have no one and then we got to start all over again? That's my concern.
I think you make a great point, but I think Weston and Sampson not honoring it, if it's going to hold it, or Weston and Sampson's concerns are secondary to our concerns. And I would like to see that we do our diligence and let the committee come back and say that they want to do it, and I'll support that. And if they want us to if they want to give us a new contract, then they're going to have to go through the process all over again. But let's at least delay it and see what the committee has to say. I don't think the contract's going to go anywhere actually for that kind of money. I think that, but that's just me. But
Mr. President?
Yeah.
I just want to say what I can do certainly, if the council is going to postpone this for any period of time, I can contact Weston and Sampson and find out how long they would keep the contract on the table, so you can weigh that in at the next meeting, the next 2 meetings, whatever the case may be. So we can get the answer to that question, because obviously they operate in the private sector, and that's just an internal decision that they can give us with a phone call.
You can do that, but like I said, their concerns are secondary to our concerns. If we're not happy with the contract, or we want to hold off on the contract, that's what's important, that we're going to look into the spending before we do $84,000. If they can work with us, great. I encourage it. I would be very happy if they could work with us. If they're not willing to work with us, then we'll deal with that at the time. But yeah, you can reach out to them. That'd be fine. But that's not a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. Anybody else?
Just one last question, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
So does that mean that the action that the previous council took to go forward with this is a moot point now?
Well, the action that the previous council took was actually just to amend the contract with the wording. There was some grammatical issues and such as, but there was nothing substantial that we approved last time. It was just basically the wording on the contract that we changed.
The previous council, though, engaged their services and asked for a written contract. That's my concern.
Yeah, I'm not killing it. I just want to get the opinion of the 9 committee members. I'm not trying to kill this whatsoever. I'll support it 100% if they come back and say that, we should do this. I can't speak for anybody else, but that'd be my position. Now, do you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table agreement for engineering services between Town of North Smithfield and Weston Sampson Engineers to the second meeting in April, which would be April 19th, until we have time to meet with the Hollowell Committee.
Second that motion.
We have a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
No,
Mr. Biragad.
Yes. Madam Clerk, did you get the April 2nd?
April 19th.
April 9th. I'm sorry, what time? What-
April 19th.
Oh, the second meeting, okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on, discussion by council vote on other action on resolution amending the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee from 5 members to 7 members. In your packet, you have the change that was made. The only change that was made on this was establishes a Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, which shall be comprised of 7 members. Previously, it said 5 members. That was the only change that was done. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Motion for discussion.
We have a motion for discussion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Alves?
I'm just wondering, like Mr. Vadenais brought up last time, that this committee never really had any meetings prior. So I'm just wondering in this resolution if there should be a guideline as to how many meetings or how often they should be, so that way we know that, you know, what we need to be done for the seniors is being done.
I don't have an objection to that. We can always add that, ask Mrs. Zelinski to add that. I'm sorry, Ms. Igliozzi, I apologize. I was looking at Mrs. Zelinski when I said that. Ms. Igliozzi, are you there?
I am, Mr. President. I didn't hear the question, though.
The question was, we just like to add, Ms. Alves was asking if we could possibly add some kind of, how do you word it? You went on the,
Just that we put in the resolution that there's a certain amount of time, how many times they should meet, like once per month, you know, with minutes, just so we know that they're actually a working committee and that we are working to do the most we can for the seniors.
Okay. Then I would add, if that's your pleasure, I can submit that amendment for the next meeting. And that amendment will be pretty minor, and it won't change the number of the members. So I can do that by next meeting, long and short of it.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Igliozzi, a quick question though. I was hoping to make those appointments at the next meeting. Will we still be able to approve it and then make the appointments?
You will, because obviously everybody knows now there's going to be 7 members. So you know how many appointments, that's not changing. It's just going to be a minor amendment. So I would just say, before you make the appointments, obviously, I would ask you to have first on the agenda the minor amendment. My understanding is we want 2 meetings a month and minutes of the meetings, which is required by law, but having it in there is still a good idea.
They can be 2 meetings a month, but I think we should say a minimum of 1 meeting a month, but not more than 2 meetings a month.
Minimum of 1, okay.
Everybody, is that agreeable?
Mr. Igliozzi,
Yes,
can we make the motion and approve this resolution tonight, stating that it's going to be amended to read that?
yes, you can do that. You can do that. I just thought you'd want the wording in front of you. You could make that you can make that motion tonight, and then it's effectively, we can do that tonight. This is up for consideration. If you wanted to make that motion to amend tonight, you could do that. And then we'll follow it up with the wording. I just wanted to make sure that the wording, everybody sees it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Is there any discussion on this? Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution for the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee with the amendment of including 1 meeting required per month with meetings.
Second.
Any more discussion on this?
that, Mr. President, that's just the amendment. Now, that's the motion on the amendment, right?
7 member, correct.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes,
Mr. Biragad.
Yes. Okay, the next agenda item, we're going to move down.
Now, Mr. President, you need to now move the resolution as amended. Pass a motion to pass the resolution as amended.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. Okay, well, go ahead.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pass the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee resolution as amended.
That's a motion. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I still raise my concern about changing the number of participants on this board. It seems that we're changing the number of positions on the board based on the number of people that are applying for the position. And I think that sets a bad precedent when we do that, when we've already determined that we wanted 5 members on a board, but because we got 9 people that want to be on a board, we're going to expand the number of people on a board. It comes down, it's almost like gerrymandering now, that we're going to start playing with the makeup of boards and commissions based on who's applying for positions. If there are that many people that are interested in this board or commission, they can simply attend the meetings that are going to be held and participate in the meetings without being a voting member or appointed member of the board. We created a board with 5 members on it. That's what was determined by the council. Now we want to change it because we have a large number of people that are applying. What happens when no one applies for a position? Do we lower the number on a board after that? I think that we're going down the wrong road here by altering the number of members that we've created on this, just because we have a lot of people that are applying. I think that we need to look at the list of people that are applying, choose the ones that we feel are best to serve the town in that capacity, and the others can simply attend the meeting if they're that interested in it, without changing the number.
And once again, Mr. Vadenais, you make a great point, but I'm thinking it's an opportunity to get more residents engaged in the process, and people are coming forward and saying that they want to be involved in this committee, and that was my only motivation really to increase it, because it could be a very important committee, actually. We should be doing more for our seniors, and we have some really good people that were interested in being involved, and that was my motivation to move it from 5 to 7. Anybody else?
I'm sorry.
I also agree that if we have them as regular members, they will attend. If they're just going to attend just because they're interested in the committee, it doesn't really, it's not that important that they don't attend the committee. So I feel that if they are voting members, they're going to attend every week, and we can try and get more activities and more things done for our seniors in the community, especially if we're going to be looking forward to have a senior center. We need to make sure we have the facilities, and we need to make sure we have the activities and the people in place to do what we need for that facility.
Ms. O'Hara, did you want to say?
I agree with this. When you get to a certain age, a lot of people don't have maybe lots of family in contact. And I just think they will have a commitment like not many other groups have. I'd like to get them involved. I think there's a lot of new people coming to town, and they voice a concern that, others, they look at different communities and they have one that we've never. And at one time, someone said that people in this town do not want one. No names mentioned, but that was said. But as you go around, you meet people, they are going to other cities and towns. I just think it won't hurt anything. And I think they would be great advocates. They'll even get more people involved.
And I would like to see the committee, the Senior Citizen Committee, I might be getting off track here, but I would like to see the Senior Citizen Committee work with the Hallowell Committee together on turning that building, that gymnasium into a senior center and a community center for everybody, not just the seniors. And they can put the, combine forces, and they can probably get a lot of work done.
Yeah.
But I'm getting off track. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Biragad.
Yes. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're gonna move this next agenda item to E3. That'll be self-explanatory once we get down there. So we're gonna move this to E, discussion by council on action on the codification. We're gonna move that to E, randomly E3. Give me 1 second. Church. In North Smithfield Town Council, acting as the Board of Licenses on outdoor church services with audio at Igniting Life Praises and Worship Center, 233 Eddie Dowling Highway, 2 Saturdays a month from May to August, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I guess this is just obviously just a result of COVID that they're gonna be doing, they want to do church services right from their car. So I will entertain a motion to approve the license to go from Saturdays from May to August from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's a motion. We have a
I'd
second?
like to make a comment. Has this been?
Yeah, you're welcome to make a comment. If we could just get a second, then I'll open it up to discussion.
Second.
We have a second discussion, sorry.
All right. I'd just like to know, has this been done before? If it's gonna be outside, is there going to be music? There may be neighbors. I'd just like to make sure that we ask people around if this has been done before, and if this is gonna be a disturbance, seeing that an outside program. Usually we have, noise, etc., we go for churches and concerts. Something generally that. I just want to make sure it's not disturbing people in the area.
Is the pastor here?
We might have him on here. Hold on.
Yes, he is.
Oh, we just had him on. Okay.
Pastor?
Yes, go ahead. What was the question again?
I'm sorry, I can't hear him.
He's on one.
Well, the question was, Ms. O'Hara was asking, is it gonna be an issue with the noise with the neighbors? Is that gonna cause a problem?
Yeah, well, no, we don't anticipate having problems with the neighbor. We did have a service, one service last year, and we had it up at the top of our hill, which I guess it was close to a neighbor, but we plan on having a service at the other side of the parking lot. And I spoke to the homeowner myself, and they're aware, and they told us that they had no problems with it, and it would be facing on 146 heading to Providence. You know how the cars pass. The service is only we plan on the service only being 90 minutes, an hour and a half, and it would only be acoustic instruments with some speakers for the vocals, driving style service. I don't anticipate to have any complaints, although we've been compliant with our neighbors, like I said, and the service will last only an hour and a half, twice a month. So we're just trying to do something different for the community, in this hard time.
Well, Pastor Martin, I'd like to continue this so I can look into it a little further. I'm not saying no, but I want to know what we're getting into for people in the area. Asking them directly instead of hearsay.
Say that again.
I'm going to table this for another time so that I can inquire myself and check the area out and see how those homes are, etc.
Okay, so you said you're gonna check the address yourself and see how it is.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Thank
Pat, so we have till May, so we'll get this done in plenty of time for you. But Ms. O'Hara will be more comfortable if we just check with the neighbors and make sure that there was no issues here.
Sure, no, that's totally fine. So, what would I do now? Do I just, you guys will reach out to me at some point?
I'm gonna ask the clerk to continue this to the, what do you say, would give us enough time, what do you think? First meeting in March?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have a question, the president, right? You're the president. I do have one question. Would it be better for us to request a sound ordinance for 3 dates? That way it's better, or what would you guys recommend?
No, there's nothing wrong with your request. There's nothing wrong at all. We just want to make sure, Ms. O'Hara just wants to make sure that there's not any issues with the neighbors. But your request is legitimate and there's no issues in itself. She just wants to clear up with the neighbors that are going to be affected.
Okay, no worries. Thank you so much then.
And you do have plenty of time. We'll
appreciate
get it done for you. If it's, we'll get it back on the agenda and you'll have plenty of time.
Okay, so then just have communication with the town clerk, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Email.
Mr. President,
Mr. Vadenais?
question for the solicitor. Is this nothing more than an outdoor sound permit?
I think that was the approach that they were taking, Mr. Councilman, that they were looking for an outdoor sound permit, right?
Because if I remember correctly, the council did away with those 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, I'm not aware of that, but obviously anything outside requires, or the noise ordinance would require a council approval, either one. Either one. So he's asking.
It really has nothing to do with an outdoor church service. It's just an outdoor sound permit.
I think that's right. I think that's right. It's about the sound outside. Absolutely right, Councilman. And so I think once we satisfy Councilwoman O'Hara, whatever they need, if they need less than what they're asking for, we'll ask them to modify it, or the council can modify it.
Okay, so now we have another reason to continue it. So, like to make that motion? But we call back the other motion first, because we have.
It's always good just to start fresh.
Yourself and Steve,
So who made the motion to,
you did,
okay, so I'm gonna call that back,
and Steve.
and you're gonna call back a second. Okay. Withdraw your second, I apologize.
I withdraw my second.
Okay, I'm gonna withdraw. All right, now we have a motion to Ms. O'Hara to continue.
To continue this until further, until March 1st, until we get a little more information on this.
Okay,
And by the way, we never had a meeting outside. We had weddings that they got found, that they came to the council for. But while I was here, I mean, it was like 3 meetings. There was nothing for a church gathering.
yeah, these are crazy times though, I guess. Okay, so Ms. O'Hara made a motion. We have a second.
Mr. President, was that to a date certain?
No, we set it for the, we told them that we'd have an answer for them by the first meeting in March.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in our motion, Mr. Igliozzi, March 1st.
Thank you.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Ms. House?
No, just to be clear, but this is a motion to continue, so March 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. House?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
The motion is just to table this?
Just till March 1st, sir.
Excuse me?
Just till March 1st, so she would be able to, well, for the 2 reasons. One, the issue that you brought up, and number 2, the issue that Ms. O'Hara brought up regarding the noise, and then the issue that you brought up regarding if maybe they went above and beyond what they need to do in order to get this.
No, I'm just asking if it's a motion to table though.
Motion to continue to the 1st, yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes. Discussion by council, vote of other action on school bonds. STV DPM invoice number 90019387. This is an invoice for $130, and it has already been approved by the chairman of the school committee, Mr. Lombardi. And he seeks our approval on this invoice.
I'd like to make a motion to approve invoice STV DPM 90019387 that has been approved by Mr. Lombardi, Michael St. Jean, and Alan Seavey in the amount of $130.
It's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Carvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes. Discussion by council, vote of other action on contingency transfers from fund balance restoration contingency to the various departments.
President, I'd like to make a motion to transfer from account number 1-001-41954-565-0005-0000-00. That's a contingency balance of $20,000 for DPW consulting engineering, and transfer that to account number 1-001-156-0000-0000 to the DPW consulting engineering line for $20,000.
That's a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Carvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion for contingency line item. Can I consult with the finance director? Do I have to read every single account item? Cynthia?
You mean by number?
I
or
was
just-
trying to unmute. Sorry, Kim. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Iglesias.
No, I don't think you need, as long as the finance director is clear where it's coming from and where it's going to.
Mhm.
It's going from those two accounts. That's where they're written in the budget, Miss DeJesus.
Yes,
All right.
that's the
But
way,
you don't-
it's $815,000 that was put in the contingency for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 6 accounts at those amounts. So I guess if you just read it from the contingency to these 6 accounts at those amounts, it would be sufficient. What do you have
Yes.
any problem with that, Mr. Iglesias?
No, I don't,
Okay.
because it's one account, it's coming out of one account.
One
it's
account.
going to individual these accounts.
Yes.
If you want to do that, so Councilman, is it that you want to make one motion for all these items, or it's just that you don't want to read the numbers? I wasn't clear on what your question was.
I just wanted to know, I mean, the contingency line is all the same number, but I'll read it to where it's going to, but I just wanted to make sure if I needed to do the contingency every single time.
Right.
Okay. All right, so the next one is 350,000 coming out of contingency, going to account 1-001-4311-1-605-000000-00. And that's going to the fund, the FY21 road resurfacing account.
That's a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Carvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go down to the 6-wheel truck for 175,000, that's in contingency. I would like to make a motion to transfer that to account 1-001-4814-1001-0000-0000-00 to the capital outlay for the town six-wheel truck in the amount of $175,000. That's a motion.
That's a motion, second?
Second.
We have a second, discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
yes,
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
The next item is $90,000 in contingency that was designated for a street sweeper. I'd like to transfer that money back to account number 1-001-4814-101-0000-0000 to the town capital outlay for a street sweeper in the amount of $90,000. That's the motion.
We have a second on that?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
yes,
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to take $150,000 out of contingency that was originally for OPEB contribution and reinstate that back into account number 1-001-4811-233-0000-0000 for the OPEB contribution in the amount of $150,000.
That's a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
yes,
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Make a motion for the amount of $5,000 in contingency that was originally for the food pantry contribution and put that back into account number 1-001-4811-233-0000-0000 for the Smithfield food pantry contribution amount of $5,000. Motion?
It's a motion, a second?
Second.
We have a second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
yes,
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Also for item in the amount of $25,000 within the contingency fund that was noted for the demo of the Stanley Mill office building.
Oh, you want me to?
That one goes into another line. Do you want to
Correct.
revisit that?
Yeah, so, yeah.
Alright.
All right.
I'm going to withdraw that. That was my last motion. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion that at this time we leave that $25,000 that was slated for demolition of the Stamina Mill office building. We leave that in the contingency account at this time.
That was my thinking as well, sir. Then, Mr. DeJesus, did you want to explain what you wanted? There was an issue with that money?
Yes, on the next item, I'm going to be requesting to authorize a bid for a codification system. And I'm going to be requesting to transfer $12,930 from that $25,000 to pay for the codification system.
I'm not opposed to that. I read the memo.
Okay,
My point is just leave it in the contingency, and when we act, on that, move it from contingency to pay for it.
okay.
Mr. President, I believe that money is in the contingency right now.
It already is.
Correct. That's why I'm just saying, just instead of transferring it, I'm suggesting that we just leave it there. And when we take up the codification business, we will then address it at that time.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we'll be taking no action on that then. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna go back up to what we moved down here, level. It's gonna go in the new business. We're gonna go back up to new business, section B. Discussion by council vote on the action on awarding bid for codification services. Mr. Jesus, did you want to explain this? This goes through all of our ordinances to match state law. Can you explain how this works? Maybe a little better than I could?
Um, Council President, I would prefer Mr. Igliozzi to explain it since he's a big fan of it. I think you're right, but I don't know absolutely 100%.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, pursuant to Article 14, Section 9 of the Town Charter, the council is required to recodify and update the ordinances at least every 10 years. Sooner if possible, but it says at least every 10 years. The best I could guess, the code has been updated. It was supplemented in 2012. I don't know when the last time it was codified. It's not clear in the code, but clearly I've been here for 6 years. It hasn't been done for 6 years. So it's clearly a responsibility that has to be done. The code is inconsistent with state law in numerous ways. It's outdated in numerous ways. This process, this company reviews the code as well as the charter, by the way, and make sure the code is consistent with state law, make sure the code is consistent with the charter. Any inconsistencies are identified, and that has to be corrected by the council. But above and beyond that, they go through the code and they review all the codes in the state, other cities and towns, and they make recommendations on how to make our codes better. And the council will consider that at one time. So basically, much like we did with the charter, there would be a list of, in this case, there might be a list of 200 things that they recommend be changed, corrected, modified, or revised in some way. It's an important process to keep the codes up to date. So I'm not just a big fan. Unfortunately, the charter says it's my responsibility to supervise this process. So I worked with the clerk's office to schedule the bid. There were only 2 bidders, General Code and Muni Code, and General Code was the lower bidder, and actually, in some regards, presented a better bid, in my estimation of services. That, in a quick summary, is what is required to be done, and I would ask the council to support it.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
President,
Oh, yeah, who said that? Mr. Vadenais?
yes. Based on the opinion of the solicitor and the recommendation from the finance director, I'm going to make a motion to award to General Code LLC our codification services in the amount of $12,930, with those funds to be taken from our contingency account.
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. House,
Yes.
Mr. Carvo,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais,
Yes,
Mr. Biragad.
Yes. Discussion by council, vote on other action on balancing change order, Mechanic Street, Old Great Road, water main installation. Now, Mr. DeJesus, we discussed this briefly this afternoon. Can you explain to everybody what you explained to me? It'd be a lot easier than me trying to explain it.
Sure. From my understanding, there was a change order back in August that was approved by the previous council, and the change order was for the amount of $461,500, and it was mostly for the roads on Mechanic Street. After they do their accounting or balancing of all their orders, Mr. Jeremiah came up with another change order, of what they call a balancing change order, of decreasing that amount by $329,086.82, which gives us a net of $132,413.18 for this balancing change order that I'm asking for the town council to give the town administrator permission or authority to sign.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. President.
Mrs. Zelinski?
Toward the end, when they start reviewing these bills, they come up with an initial cost of materials, and the cost of materials were less, which changes to this change order, decreasing the amount of money.
So this looks like change order number 1, right?
There was a number 1 and they called this a balancing change order number 1. It's number 1 again. They just call it a different name.
Balancing change order number 1?
Yes, that's what they call it, yes. Balancing change order number 1.
Since we have, this works in our favor, should be an easy one. I'll entertain a motion to approve balancing change order number 1 as presented.
Second?
With a second, any further discussion or questions for Mr. DeJesus?
Just authorize the town administrator to sign it if it passes.
Okay. I will make the second motion.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
So this, Mr. President, this change order for $329,086.82. It doesn't, we still owe Boyle and Fogarty money to complete this project, correct?
Correct. That's my understanding.
We owe them
Okay,
$100,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
I understand what we went through is that, yeah, like the administrator said, it's based on, the bid is based on using a certain quantity of materials, and then when they do an audit and they find out they didn't use those materials, it's credited back as this change order. Do we know what the balance is on this?
Council,
Finish this project?
we actually paid up with Fogarty. We just made our last payment. The only vendor that we owe on this project is Jeremiah. The contract is, there's a balance of $8,205, and he hasn't sent me his last bill.
So based on this change order that we're talking about approving, that means this project came in under budget of what we actually had looked at financing with.
It did, with besides the 132, yes, it did. If you look at it that way, yes, it did.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And most of it was paid, as you know, from the bond.
Yep.
Mhm. And yeah.
Anything further from anyone? Right. Roll call, please.
Ms. House,
Yes.
Mr. Corvo,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais,
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Do you have to do a motion for the TA permission? Did you do that? Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion for the town administrator to sign the change order from,
Clean copy so I can sign it.
for balancing change order number 1.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. House,
Yes.
Mr. Corvo,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara,
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais,
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes. Okay. Discussion by council. Ordinance to amend section 2-20.2 of the Code Ordinance, Chapter 2, Article 2. This is the first reading to allow zoning board and planning board 2 consecutive 5-year terms, in addition to time remaining from filling an existing term. This is just the first reading. So, I'm sorry? Somebody's,
Mr. President,
yes?
just for clarity, I would just ask the council, this is first reading, there is no vote. The council can amend the agenda, and since I'm going to be requesting, I think the clerk is aware that we have a public hearing as well as obviously the second reading when the council takes action. I would just ask that after the words first reading on G, after the words reading, that all other language be struck from the agenda. So there's no confusion when we get to the public hearing and the second reading. Today is just that or proposed ordinance first reading. I would just ask that the council consider amending the agenda to strike the language after the word reading.
Get that?
Mhm.
Okay. We don't even need, we don't need a motion on this. We're just gonna schedule the second reading, correct?
Right. But there's two different issues. The council can amend the agenda anytime as long as you're not voting on the amendment. When I say the amendment, when you add something, we're not adding anything to the agenda. We're clarifying the agenda, and I'm not asking for a vote. You know that this agenda item has no vote on it. It's discussion by council or only. It's presentation of the ordinance under the charter for a first reading, which is required. I'm just, for clarity's sake, I'm asking that that language the agenda be amended to remove that language. And then we can do the first reading on the ordinance.
Okay. All right, just, we don't need a motion, but just, can we just?
We need, Mr. President, we need a motion to strike amend the agenda to strike the language. If that passes, then we need to read the ordinance, first reading, and then schedule a public hearing and a second reading.
Okay.
Right now, we do need a motion, if you'll entertain it, it's my request, to strike the language after the word reading by amendment. I'm asking you to amend the agenda, not amend the ordinance, amend the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to amend our agenda, item 5, subsection G, for discussion by council ordinance to amend section 2-20-2 of the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 2, Article 2, first reading, and to disregard anything after first reading.
Okay, that's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. President, Mr. Bigliozzi, what's the point of removing that language if that's what, in fact, what we want to do with the first reading?
Actually, the language is slightly incorrect, so I don't want to confuse the council or the public. The ordinance is actually amending, the proposed ordinance is actually amending the ordinance to allow you to serve, the planning board and the zoning board to serve 2 consecutive meetings, excluding any partial term that they served, not existing term. And that word bothered me, existing term, and I didn't want to confuse people because it's not about existing term, it's about partial term.
Okay.
That's an important distinction.
Yep, there's a big difference there.
Right. And that's why I didn't want to have the council or the public confused.
Okay.
Anything else? Further questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Carvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
So, Mr. President, with that said, the ordinance, primarily, the ordinance, as you know, is presented to you with language in red, I believe, if it was received the way I submitted it to you, indicating the amendment. And the amendment should be read for the first time tonight, and then schedule a second, a public hearing, and then right after that, the second reading.
Okay.
And that can be done at the next council meeting. Doesn't have to go, this does not have to be advertised. It just needs to be a public hearing.
I understand. So I should read the whole ordinance then at this point then?
If you want to read it, that's fine, but it's very important that I think you read the amendment, because that's what this is. This is an ordinance to amend. It's about the new language. But if you don't read it in context, I guess people wouldn't understand, but I would be clear when you get to the new language, what the new language is.
Okay. Section 2.2-20.2, length of service. No officially appointed board or commission member, whether appointed through the offices of the town administrator or town council, shall be limited in terms of length of service such member may render on a particular board or commission, excepting only members of the planning board and zoning board of review, who shall be limited in terms of length of such service such members may render on either the planning board or the zoning board of review. And here's the amendment right here. To no more than 2 consecutive full 5-year terms, excluding any partial term of less than 5 years previously served. Provided, however, that any former member of either the planning board or the zoning board of review shall again be eligible for reappointment to such board after not less than 5 years shall have elapsed from the end of such 10-year consecutive period. This limit is specific to the planning board and zoning board of review and is not a limit of services to the town in other capacities on other different boards or commissions. These limits are retroactive to appointments made after December 1st, 1995. All other members serving on boards and commissions may serve out their full terms and seek out reappointment without prior year service penalty. Okay, now we're gonna schedule, put it on the schedule at the next council meeting for a second reading.
End the public hearing, Mr. President,
first.
please.
Yeah, public hearing, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Iglesias. Discussion by council vote or other action on award of bid for Forestdale Schoolhouse electrical service update. Mr. Jesus?
I'm hoping, Mr. Keene or Mr. Harris would like to speak on this.
One of them here.
They're both,
Which one of you gentlemen like to be heard on this?
I'm not sure if Mr. Keene is here, but Jeff Harris is here. I'm a board member of the North Smithfield Heritage Association, 97 St. Paul Street. This refers to putting an underground service from the pole on School Street to the Forestdale Schoolhouse. We have already laid the underground piping. It's just a matter of bringing in the electrical service underground now. And we're going to replace the current box with a 200 amp service.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bid from Dion Electric of Blackstone, Massachusetts for the amount of $3,650.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
make a motion that we award a bid to Dion Electric of Blackstone, Mass. in the amount of $3,650 for the installation of a 200 amp service at the Forestdale Schoolhouse.
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion by council vote on other action on award of bid for heavy and specialized equipment purchase, maintenance and repair. Mr. Jesus?
this came from the Director of Public Works. It's a recommendation to utilize the state Rhode Island Master Price Agreement number 91 and to award it to Norfolk Power Equipment for the amount of $13,679. This will be coming out of the fiscal 21 capital fund.
Okay, we have a motion? No. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for the point to award $13,679 for Norfolk Power Equipment for the purchase of the zero-turn mower. That's a motion. Is what happened? Do you want?
So.
No, no motion, she said. Okay, so she makes a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corvo?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadenais?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes. Okay, discussion by council vote on other action on appointments. Mrs. Zelinski, would you like to take it from here?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will announce my appointments and of course town council approval. I'd like a request that we do this with a roll call vote for each individual. Town council members, first appointment I would like to is Mr. Raymond Pendergast to Public Works Director.
I'll make a motion to approve Mr. Pendergast as a public work director. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call.
Mr. President,
Yes,
I'd like to recuse myself.
okay. Madam Clerk, you make that notation. Okay. Roll call, please.
Oh, sorry. Miss Alves? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm reading. I'm so sorry. Mr. Carver?
Mr. President, Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't believe these appointments require council approval.
They don't, Mrs. Zelinski is requesting it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know he did that. I apologize.
Well, to expedite it, I'm okay.
Okay.
I'll just.
Okay.
You want to just go down?
Yes, please.
Until you get to, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, Finance Director, Cynthia DeJesus, Assistant Finance Director, Jerry Ann Nunes, Town Planner, Tom Kravitz, Building Inspector, Zoning Official, Kerry Anderson, Assistant Zoning Official, Carl Johnson, Water and Superintendent, Russell Carpenter, Assistant Water and Sewer Superintendent, John McDonald, excuse me, Police Chief, Tim Lafferty, EMA Director, Emergency Management Agency Director, Peter Branconium, Deputy Tax Assessor, Jennifer St. George, Water and Sewer Coordinator, Maura Beck, Parks and Recreation Program, Catherine Pasquarello, Administrative Assistant Coordinator to Town Administrator, Donna Ravito, Administrative Assistant to Police Chief, Tafita Allen, Plumbing Mechanical Inspector, Philip Paul, Electrical Inspector, Raj Manad, Assistant Electrical Inspector, Michael Samborski. So at this point, I'm taking a little turn in the agenda. I'm not submitting names for formal approval at this moment, but I'm going to put these names forward for acting or interim, whatever term you wish to use. So for town clerk, I'm asking that Joanne Buddy, actually I'm not asking, Joanne Buddy will be the interim clerk. And for deputy town clerk, Tammy Jakes.
Thank you, sir. I think that pretty much, anybody have anything else? That pretty much concludes the agenda. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
See you, Dave.
So the file left right hand corner of the bottom, hit that. Take your mouse over to here. Hit that.
Okay. And I hit stop recording already, is that
Yeah,
good? Okay.
beautiful. Hit that.
Okay. Do I hit yes here first?
Yes.